The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
Welcome to a special edition of Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association, connecting Virginians to their government. We're real pleased to have Maurice Jones with us today, the Secretary of Commerce and Trade. Welcome, sir.
Nice to be with you.
I noticed that the governor in his State of the Commonwealth remarks had some real positive news about the economy. He talked about the Air Force Cyber Operations Squadron at Langley Air Force Base. We were a recipient of that good news, and also the new VISA state-of-the-art cyber fusion center in Northern Virginia. That kind of highlights the continued problem we have in terms of creating a new Virginia economy.
I would call it the continued opportunity that we have. But let me step back. I mean, the economy is robust and strong in Virginia right now. If you look at where we are, we've got a 4.2% unemployment rate. It's the lowest in the Southeast. That's the fourth lowest east of the Mississippi. It's the lowest in Virginia since 2008. We've got 3,856,100 jobs. That's the highest employment level in the history of the state. We've had 21 consecutive months of year-over-year employment growth. And in fact, since the governor came to office, we've created 96,500 net new jobs. Now, to your point, we still have these big challenges, right? The risk in our economy remain two in particular. One is this incredible reliance on the public sector, namely the Defense Department, for both our job generating engine and our good wage paying job generating engine. We still have an over-reliance on that we're moving away from, actually, believe it or not. Then the second risk in the economy is that Northern Virginia is still the locus of the overwhelming bulk of jobs that we are seeing generated every month. So we need more balance between public and private sector, more balance between Northern Virginia and the rest of Virginia in order to have a more resilient Commonwealth. And that's what we're working on. But in general, the headline, I'll take Virginia's cards any day.
Yes, some numbers I saw recently suggest that the Commonwealth is still lagging behind in terms of growth compared to other states, and 13 out of the top 20 employers are still in the public sector.
Yes, so that latter number is still the case. 13 of our top 20 employers are still public sector, and when you break it down, it's federal government, namely the Defense Department, which is our largest employer, and it's local and state government. And then you will look and you'll see, or contractors to one of those or all of those. That's still the biggest bulk of where our jobs are coming from. And so that piece is still the case, and again, still what we're working on. But that former piece that you're talking about is turning around very nicely. Virginia's, if you will, job or GNP or GDP now is actually growing at a rate that's more comparable to what you're seeing on a national level. And once we get all of 2015's numbers in, I think you'll see that actually Virginia has closed that gap between the rate of growth nationally and the rate of growth in Virginia. And that's a good sign. It's a sign, actually, that our private sector is really rebounding very nicely.
And I believe the Commonwealth still enjoys a AAA bond rating.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Now, talk to us a little bit about what your responsibilities are and what you are doing to help promote the governor's new Virginia economy.
Sure. The Commerce and Trade Secretariat principally sort of looks at how we're doing generating jobs across the Commonwealth and how the public sector can help with that job generating journey. So I spend most of my time looking at 5 themes, if you will, and trying to add value. How we're doing with respect to key infrastructure pieces that need to be great if we're going to generate jobs and jobs at good wages. So, for example, how's broadband penetration in Virginia? What can we do to get more broadband penetration across the Commonwealth? We spend a fair amount of time trying to work with localities in the private sector to get more broadband penetration. Talent is a second theme. And talent, by the way, is the most important theme. And we are spending a lot of time trying to make sure that our workforce system is preparing Virginians for the 21st century opportunities. And one big theme in that area is we need more of our people that are competent and credentialed in the trades and the skills. So more welders, more machinists, more mechanics, more truck drivers. So I'm spending a lot of time on workforce development. And in fact, one of our big legislative initiatives this year is an initiative that will enable our community colleges and some of our other public institutions to confer more of these credentials on a faster track.
It's interesting you mentioned the trades, because when I was in school, the trades were looked upon as a negative thing.
It is part of what we have to overcome now. We have to persuade mommy and daddy and guidance school counselor and coach and pastor that they need to be helping students choose the best path for them. And an option on that path, a very viable option, is go and get an American Welding Society certification. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you'll get paid more than a BA in political science. I can promise you that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We've got a branding issue that we've got to tackle when it comes to the trades and the technical pieces, and we're hard at work on that.
As a matter of fact, I believe that the governor used as an example the fact that there are about 17,000 jobs out there now in cybersecurity, and they pay, on average, a starting salary of about $80,000 a year.
It's not just cybersecurity, literally. I mean, machinists, mechanics, welders, program managers. There are very, very good paying jobs out there that we need to fill, and that we need to inspire confidence in the private sector that we will be able to fill at a fast clip in order to get them to either stay in Virginia, invest more in Virginia, or to come to Virginia. No question about it.
So I take it that you are probably encouraged by the fact that policymakers, including people in the legislature, have recognized that this is an issue and see it as an opportunity.
I am more than encouraged. I'm grateful, and I'm also really optimistic that this consensus is developing, that this is an area that Virginia needs to be great in order for us to have a great economy moving forward. And people are working on it. Republicans, Democrats, legislative, executive, and private sector, local government. I'm really encouraged that people are prioritizing talent development as really the #1 economic development strategy for the state.
The governor also talked about a new paradigm at the high school level, and I think you've spoken to that in terms of more emphasis in terms of our trades, but also
Absolutely.
At the community college level as well. I take it that's going on. That has been going on.
Has been, and what we're saying now is it's time to ratchet up the game. That we've got 23 community colleges. Mm-hmm. We've got a community college within 30 miles of almost every resident of the state. And so they've got access to our people and to our businesses across the Commonwealth. Well, we need to make sure we leverage those enterprises in order to prepare our talent for the opportunities.
What are some of those opportunities that currently exist at our community colleges?
I think you've got the associate degrees that you can do in a number of different areas. But I think the real opportunity, and where the community colleges are placing a lot of emphasis, is on taking their ability to, in a short amount of time, months, maybe a year, get people prepared to go straight into the workforce with a skill set that businesses are demanding and are willing to pay for and are willing to pay middle class wages at a minimum, that's where the big opportunities are. And it ranges from lots of IT certifications and competencies in, say, Northern Virginia to cybersecurity and, say, Hampton Roads to manufacturing in Southwest and South Side Virginia. These are the places where we can very quickly work with a prospective worker or incumbent worker and upgrade his or her skill set in order to enable them to get into very solid middle skill jobs that will pay good wages and that can be platforms for either further education or job mobility.
Now,
That's where the opportunity
what
is.
about healthcare? I take it that also provides some tremendous opportunities as well.
No question. It's hard to have a high quality workforce if you're not also paying attention to stuff like housing and healthcare and education. You have to have all of that in the package if you're really going to have the highest quality workforce that you can put on the field, if you will.
Now, you mentioned talent. Is it accurate to say that the jobs will follow the talent?
Very accurate, and in fact, that's our message to folks, right? Whereas in the past, you often have heard, money follows the talent, right? And that's still true, but it's also true that job follows the talent. And so, if you have the talent, the jobs will come, but you have to be able to prove you've got the talent.
Now, how hard is it to retain youngsters, especially in places like Southside and Southwest Virginia? Now, we certainly don't want to export our kids to Northern Virginia or out of state.
Yeah. I think that when you talk about attracting young folks and retaining them, what you're seeing more and more now is that young folks want to go to places, right? They will up and just go to a place and say, I want to live there, and I want to live there because the place has outdoor amenities, or it has a young entrepreneurial ecosystem, or it has, great cultural or arts offerings. We have to make sure that in our communities, these are the things that we're working on enhancing. And I would tell you that Virginia, from the ocean to the mountains, have great communities with those amenities and communities that are working on those amenities. We've got to make sure that we keep working on them, but we also market them aggressively. Just as Boulder, Colorado, and others have done, we need to do the same thing in Virginia. So our tourism folks, for example, are working pretty hard with local communities to make sure that we are providing them some tools to help better market what they have in their communities. And we have it. Virginia has these assets in communities all over the state, big, large, middle-sized, small. We've got to make sure we work on the content and then market it aggressively.
Now, what impact has new technology had on the economy?
I think the way that technology has most impacted the economy is it's put a premium on talent that are digitally competent, digitally fluent. And so it's provided this great opportunity for jobs, but it also provides this challenge that you've got to have people prepared. But get this is where, again, Virginia, I think, thrives. We have the second largest per capita number of people in the workforce who have technology experience.
The second largest per capita.
Yeah. So we are second to Silicon Valley per capita with workers with digital competency. So Virginia's positioned very nicely, if you will, for this digital revolution that's occurring. If you want people with experience in the digital space, Virginia's the best place to come.
And we also have some other examples of some of our institutions of higher learning that are involved in new technology. For example, Virginia Tech, I believe.
Virginia Tech, actually, most of our higher ed enterprises are heavily involved in technology to do research, to do collaboration, to do teaching. We got to do more. And in fact, one of our private institutions, Liberty, has arguably the most plentiful online course offerings of any institution anywhere in the U.S. So yeah, I think our universities are they know you've got to do this if you're going to reach more people and to reach people on multiple platforms and to respect the student of the 21st century who may be working or who may have a family who may need at night to be able to go online and listen to a lecture or what have you. That's just where we are now. And so our higher ed enterprises, small, medium, and large, public and private, are all engaged in the online opportunity.
Yeah, one of the issues that's being addressed in the current session relates to the use of unmanned aerial vehicles,
yes.
Drones.
Yeah.
And obviously, that's a new technology that will bring more jobs to the Commonwealth as well.
Absolutely. And we have Virginia Tech and others with some real expertise and leadership in this area. Plus, we have all these military assets across the Commonwealth. So the unmanned vehicles industry that is developing very rapidly across the U.S. Should have as its seat Virginia. We have the assets both in the public and the private sector that make us the place to be when it comes to this industry, which will be around for quite some time and which will continue to spin off innovative uses, if you will, of that technology.
Now, farming and forestry are still huge industries,
Still big industries.
And huge economic drivers in the state.
Absolutely.
They're going to remain that for some time. Talk to us about their significance.
Well, I'll give you a number to think about. So we export now somewhere around $36 billion of goods and services to the world. At least $3.5 billion of that includes exports that are forestry or agriculture. And when you think about what's happening across the world, 95% of the world's consumers are outside of the U.S. The fastest growing region in the world is probably the Asia Pacific region, where you've got a place like China with 1.4 billion people. They've got to feed those folks. And it's a real opportunity for our farmers to find additional markets for their goods and services. And Virginia is aggressively pursuing those markets. So I see, and people love that stamp, made in America, in this case, made in Virginia. And so I see the demand for what our people are doing in the ag and forestry area continuing to increase, particularly outside of the country.
And of course, that's part of your portfolio.
Well, actually, the trade is, although we do have a Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry that covers that area in particular, but yeah, trade is a huge piece of our portfolio.
And of course, that's a good segue into the importance of the Port of Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
The ability to handle the post-Panamax ships that will be shortly coming through there, and the need to maintain a competitive advantage for that port. Talk to us about that as well.
The post-Panamax ships are already coming.
They're already there.
Already coming, yeah. And Virginia is one of the few places on the East Coast with a channel deep enough to receive them. Yeah, the Port of Virginia is a huge asset for us. If you're trying to, in particular, attract companies or keep companies in Virginia who are trying to find customers outside of the country or who already have them. The presence of a world-class port is an incredible asset. And so that port helps us as we're marketing Virginia both internationally and domestically. In addition, that port employs a lot of people directly and indirectly, thousands across the Commonwealth. And so it is an economic engine. And now the port is profitable, if you will. It's a profitable enterprise. And so that port, now what we have to do though, is we have to continue to invest in that port to keep it competitive. And that's what the governor has done with respect to his budget proposal this time around. We've got a huge bond proposal for investing in the infrastructure at the port, and we need to do it. It has to continue to distinguish itself as a leading port in the world. As long as we do that, Virginia will have an asset that few states in this country can even begin to think about.
Yeah, I believe that bonding request is about $350 million. That's
right.
one of several over the next, 5 to 10 years in order for us to maintain that competitive advantage.
Oh yeah, because you have fierce competition from the South and from the North and the West Coast. And so we have to continue to distinguish that port as a place with cutting edge technology, but also as a place that has an incredible productivity. The key when it comes to ports, so one of the keys is how quickly can you get cargo in and out on ships and off ships, on trucks, on rail, in and they've got to be, because people don't want to lose time waiting to be loaded or unloaded. And we have some work to do on that infrastructure piece to make sure that our port continues to be world class.
We also have the inland port in Front Royal, and we have the Port of Richmond as well.
Yes.
They are important.
Yes, they are. And in fact, big opportunity for us to really develop the Port of Richmond because the Port of Richmond sits at a strategic location within the state that if we can better utilize it to get cargo in and out of Richmond and then down to Norfolk and to make sure that we can help with some of the congestion. The Port of Richmond can play a much bigger role in what in our port system, if you will, across the Commonwealth.
And I believe there's been a study commissioned or to be commissioned to study the feasibility of a port in Southside.
There is a look right now at the opportunity for a port in Southside, absolutely. And from my standpoint, that would be terrific as a son of Southside.
Now, what about the importance of rail to the economy and to your office?
Hard to overstate the importance of rail, both for transporting goods, but also people. We clearly need more rail reaching more parts of the state at high speeds in order to keep this Commonwealth a place where, going back to what you mentioned, where young folks want to come. And we have to make sure that we're investing in rail as well as our roads, by the way, as well as our regional airports and our global airports. We've got to do all of that. That's that infrastructure piece that I mentioned if we're going to continue to move Virginia forward when it comes to economic growth.
Now, what about this concept of regional cooperation by way of Go Virginia?
It's a big opportunity. Our regions continue to be where the location of job generating activity really, if you will, where the rubber hits the road. And strengthening our regions, going back to what I said originally, our challenge, in addition to public sector overdependence, is also a regional overdependence on Northern Virginia. So the ability to have more tools to help our regions flourish is is indispensable when it comes to trying to have a resilient economy going forward. Go Virginia presents that opportunity for us. Absolutely.
Now, Virginia at one point was ranked #1 in terms of a friendly business environment. It has fallen, but I know you're in the process of making sure that we get back to #1.
Well, let me just make sure I clarify that
Okay.
the rankings issue. It's best states for business rankings, right? Virginia has taken a tumble in these rankings for two reasons principally. And we have talked about one of them, but I want to talk about the other one, so thanks for that opportunity. The first thing that we have taken a hit on is the assessment of our job generating prospects. And that's people's assessment of that very risk that we are talking about, too much dependence on the public sector. Fair enough. But the other area where Virginia has taken its lumps and thus its rankings have declined is in this area that people are calling cost of doing business. And around that, we're talking about, making sure our taxes remain competitive, making sure our regulations remain lean and smart, making sure we've got incentives in place to help companies, if you will, reduce the cost of doing business. And we're working on that too. The governor proposed a lowering of the corporate tax rate from 6% to 5.75%. The fact is, we adopted that 6% number in 1972.
That was a long time ago.
Long time ago. The Dolphins won the Super Bowl in 1972.
Oh, wow.
I had an afro in 1972. It's a long time ago, right? It's time for us to take a look at that. And the other fact is, it's all relative. It's only low if your competitors are higher. Well, guess what? Our competitors are already in the 5s, some of them going to 4s. Carolina talking about going to 3%.
Wow.
So we have to do more around helping to lower the cost of doing business in Virginia. And by the way, that's the third or fourth area that my secretariat works on, is this area of what is the business climate like in Virginia. And one of the areas that we have to continue to work on, and this won't be a one-year endeavor, this will be a several-year endeavor, but we've got to lower the cost of doing business in the state.
Great. Well, thank you for being here, Maurice
My
Jones,
pleasure.
Secretary of Commerce and Trade.
Nice
Keep
to
up
be-
the good work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching this special edition of Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.